I want you to take a look at this image of Kylie Jenner, specifically at her lips and how they went from looking like this to looking like this. When her family rose to fame thanks to the reality show, and in part to Kim's leaked adult video, which I'll talk about in a moment, Kylie's lips were heavily criticized for supposedly being too small. But just a few months later, they took on a completely different shape, which made many people suspect that Kylie was using injections. The matter drew so much attention that it even sparked a viral challenge on the internet where people would suck on a glass to create a vacuum that would bring more blood to their lips. However, Kylie denied having undergone any kind of surgery or injections and claimed it was all thanks to a makeup technique, only to later take advantage of the situation and launch a line of lipsticks that made her even more of a millionaire. And I wouldn't be telling you about this if it weren't for what happened next. Months after launching the lipsticks, she admitted that she had, in fact, gotten injections. This act, aside from being unethical, highlights a problem that women in particular face every day, one that gradually undermines their self-esteem while filling the pockets of the big brands in the beauty industry. The case of the Kardashians is the perfect example of this. So, to understand how these figures, who many accuse of having no talent, rose to fame, we need to look at their origins. And those origins go back to their mother, whom many consider the architect of one of the biggest media phenomena in history. Her name is Kris Jenner, and she was born on November 5th, 1955 in San Diego. She grew up with her mother and stepfather after her parents' divorce. As a young woman, she worked as a flight attendant, traveling and meeting people. In 1973, she met Robert Kardashian, and although she wasn't interested at first, years later they reconnected, started dating, and got married in 1978. This marriage resulted in Kris taking her husband's last name and having 4 beautiful children: Kourtney Kardashian, Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, and Rob Kardashian. Robert Kardashian's children grew up in comfort in Los Angeles, big houses, trips, private schools, and a luxurious environment, even though they weren't famous yet. These connections opened the door for them to the world of show business. Kim, in particular, surrounded herself with celebrities like Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton, who comes from the family that owns the Hilton hotels. However, the family's life took an unfortunate turn when Robert discovered that his wife had been cheating on him with a football player. Robert himself even said that he still loved Kris, but he couldn't get over the betrayal, and that's why he decided to get a divorce. Just 1 month after the divorce became official, Kris remarried, this time to an Olympic medalist named Bruce Jenner. With this new marriage came 2 lovely daughters, Kendall and Kylie Jenner. The children from the first marriage had to integrate and live together with this new blended family, which was more exposed to the worlds of sports and entertainment. For his part, Robert Kardashian remained focused on his businesses until 1994, when the family name returned to the public spotlight. That year, a close friend of Robert's named O.J. Simpson was accused of the murder of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. Robert decides to reactivate his law license, which had been inactive for years, and joins the legal team defending O.J. Although he is not one of the lead attorneys in court, his constant presence at the trial, one of the most high-profile in history, puts the Kardashian name in front of cameras around the world. At the time, no one knew that this surname would continue to make headlines for years to come. With the arrival of the 2000s, Kim starts going out more with her friend Paris and begins a relationship with Damon Thomas, a music producer. At 19, she runs away from home to marry him, but far from being a love story, it ends up as a scandal. Later, it is revealed that Kim got married under the influence of substances, and after 3 years, they divorce. But in 2003, Kim faces another blow. Her father, Robert Kardashian, is diagnosed with esophageal cancer and passes away 2 months later. At this point, Kim reconsiders what she wants to do and where her life is headed, and sets herself the goal of becoming famous. As part of this plan, she works as a stylist for actress and singer Brandy, and through her meets Ray J, Brandy's brother. There is an immediate connection between Kim and Ray J, and before long they start a relationship. At the beginning of their relationship, Kim and Ray J take a vacation in Mexico where they decide to record a video of themselves having intimate relations, which will become important later on. As a stylist, Kim expands her circle of celebrities, especially by accompanying Paris Hilton to events, which helps her become known. At that time, Paris is much more famous, partly because of the leak of an intimate video that catapulted her to fame and earned her her own reality show, The Simple Life. In 2006, Kim ends her relationship with Ray J after 3 years and decides to move forward by founding the clothing store Dash in Calabasas with her sisters. At this point, the matriarch of the family, Kris Jenner, contacts several producers to pitch them the idea of a reality show about her family, since she is convinced it will be a total success. Luckily for her, television host Ryan Seacrest, who was very famous in the 2000s, already had in mind to create a show centered around a family. So when Kris pitches him the idea, he loves it. However, the biggest change in Kim's life and in the entire family's life is still yet to come. What happens at the beginning of 2007 turns the Kardashians' world upside down. For better or worse, I'll let you be the judge. Do you remember the video that Kim and Ray recorded, the one I told you would be important? Well, now it's time to talk about it. In 2007, Kim finds out that Vivid Entertainment, without her consent, has distributed her intimate video with Ray J on the internet. And although Kim was already somewhat known, the news made her name go global within hours. Devastated, she sues Vivid until they reach a settlement. Kim receives $5 million and the company is allowed to distribute the video under the name Kim Kardashian Superstar. Although she gets the money, her self-esteem is affected. However, Kris Jenner, her mother, sees an opportunity in the attention Kim is receiving. As we saw, she had been thinking about a reality show about her family for some time, and when she found out about the video, she thought two things. As a mother, she was furious, but as a manager, she knew it was time to act. Many people find it suspicious that Kim's intimate video was leaked right before the reality show started. Some believe it wasn't a coincidence, but rather part of a plan by Kris Jenner to ensure the show's success. The theory gained more traction. Things got more intense when Ray J said he had signed a contract with Kris to record several videos with Kim, leaving the copies in her hands. Kris has always denied this, and the reality show's producer insists that the project was already approved before the scandal. Even so, the idea that the show took off thanks to that video still lingers in many people's minds. Be that as it may, the reality show project found its place on the E! Channel, and by the summer of 2007, filming began. The producers decide to name the reality show Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and it premieres in October 2007. The result, the show becomes an overwhelming success. They describe the show as an unscripted family sitcom. Each episode first showcases the family's luxuries and then presents a problem that is resolved with a reflection on family unity. At first, the tone is more positive, although this changes over time. In the first season, the Kardashians have money and connections, but they're not that famous yet, and the main protagonists are Kim, Khloe, and Kourtney. And well, I've already told you about Kim, but now it's time to get to know Khloe and Kourtney. Khloe and Kourtney had a childhood and adolescence similar to Kim's. In fact, their lives are so similar that while Kim was working as Paris Hilton's assistant, Khloe was the assistant to Paris's best friend, Nicole Richie. But there's a notable difference, at least for the audience in 2007. When the reality show premieres, Khloe gets a lot of attention because she's physically different from her sisters. Khloe is taller with a larger build compared to Kim and Kourtney. The audience watching the reality show can't help but make comparisons and comment on Khloe's weight, which leads the then 23-year-old to start having a negative relationship with her body from the moment the show premieres. As I mentioned before, Kim's goal is to be famous, and Kris Jenner is committed to helping her achieve that dream. The first step was getting them the show, and now they have to keep the public's attention, something they do very well since each week they attract more viewers. However, there are episodes that make the ratings skyrocket. One of the most famous moments happens in the 4th episode of the first season when Kim gets a very important opportunity that could boost her career, posing for the iconic Playboy magazine. At first, Kim refuses to pose nude, but her mom convinces her to do it. This leads to an iconic moment. Kris accompanies Kim to the photo shoot, and while Kim poses wearing nothing but pearl and diamond necklaces, her mom praises her for how well she's doing. Another memorable moment from the first season happens when Khloe is arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol. Even though it's a serious matter, Kim laughs as she tells her mom about it, showing the show's carefree tone. That's how the first 2 seasons go by, with the Kardashians hooking the audience by showing a world of luxury and conflicts turned into entertainment with a lifestyle that seems from another universe. Another reason for their popularity is the image of beauty they project, especially Kim with her Playboy cover, setting an ideal of how a woman should look in those years. Small waist, defined curves, tan skin, flawless makeup, and clothes that highlight every part of the body. This ideal doesn't come out of nowhere, but from their lifestyle shown on screen, with episodes dedicated to their makeup, workout routines, and diets. That's why their fame goes beyond entertainment and becomes an influence within the beauty industry. And now that they've captured all this attention, it's time to take the next step, monetizing it. To do this, the Kardashians expand their brand through other projects and collaborations with brands specifically in beauty. Kim, for example, poses for Playboy again, but this time for the cover of another edition. She participates in the series Dancing with the Stars and launches her own perfume. Among the products they promote are waist-slimming pants and weight loss products. So far, the Kardashians seem to be living a dream life thanks to fame, but with it also come criticisms. The most common is that they are famous simply for being famous. Journalist Barbara Walters summed it up in an interview: "You don't act, you don't sing, you don't dance, you have no talent." And although it sounds harsh, many people associate fame with having a talent, something that they apparently don't show at first glance. But there are those who think differently and believe that they do have a talent that is relevant today, and later on I'll tell you what it is. Keeping Up with the Kardashians became so popular that in 2009, during its 3rd season, the first of many spin-offs was announced: Kourtney and Kim Take Miami. In this show, we follow the sisters on their adventure to open the 2nd store of their clothing brand Dash in that city. By this time, Kim had already earned a place in popular culture, something that became clear in 2010 when the Madame Tussauds Museum in New York made her wax figure. A year later, Kim made headlines again by getting engaged to NBA player Kris Humphries after only a few months of dating. By then, the reality show was already in its sixth season and was showing more and more of their lives, including the marriage proposal. But not everything is so perfect for the couple. Tensions soon arise over how they handle money, and because Khloe, among others, doubts that Kris is the right one. Despite this, they go ahead with the wedding plans while the engagement sparks a media frenzy. It seems like the media can only talk about this. Kim takes advantage of the attention to launch a perfume called Kim Kardashian Love, which goes on sale the same day as the wedding. When the day arrives, it turns into a spectacle that is documented in the reality show special Kim's Fairy Tale Wedding. On August 20th, 2011, Kim and Kris get married in California. For a moment, it seemed like the family had nothing to worry about. The newlyweds looked happy and the world seemed perfect for Kim. Or well, at least it was for 72 days, because after that time, Kim files for divorce from her husband. The entertainment world once again explodes with the news of their separation, and it doesn't take long for people to accuse Kim of using her marriage as a publicity stunt to promote her TV shows and beauty products, like the perfume she launched just for the wedding. After months in which the media and social networks talk about nothing but Kim Kardashian and her wedding, a lot of people get fed up and launch a petition called No More Kardashian to get the show off television, gathering thousands of signatures. But even though many claim to be tired of them, they keep watching, and that's why the reality show is renewed for 2 more seasons. Meanwhile, Kim faces a complicated separation process. Kris Humphries doesn't want a divorce. He wants to annul the marriage, something that's hard to achieve. For him, this was important because of his religious beliefs, but Kim stands firm in seeking a divorce. The differences drag out the process. It goes on for years, and during that time, Kim reconnects with an old friend with whom she forms a special bond again. And that friend is Kanye West. March 2012 arrives, bringing yet another scandal into this family's life. However, this isn't a scandal that only affects them and that's it. This is a controversy that could impact hundreds of thousands of people, and it's related to the weight loss pills I mentioned earlier. Let me tell you about it. By this point, the Kardashians are already a strong and influential brand in popular culture. That image opens doors for them with several beauty and personal care brands, including a weight loss pill called Quick Trim. These companies hire Kim, Kourtney, and Khloe to become the faces of the campaign, which turns out to be a huge success as sales start generating millions of dollars. Many people buy the product believing, consciously or unconsciously, that this way they'll be able to look like them. However, not everything goes well. Shortly after, a group of women files a lawsuit against Quick Trim and the Kardashians, claiming that it was all false advertising. The women used this product for a while, and after seeing no results, investigated its contents, discovering that the supposed ingredients that made you lose weight were just caffeine and some herbs that really don't help much with that goal. The lawsuit directly points to the sisters as key figures in the strategy to boost sales of a deceptive product. The Kardashians' association with a product that makes you lose weight was a very good strategy from a sales perspective, but here the line between selling a product and profiting from people's insecurities starts to become very thin. And that's not even counting the fact that the product was fraudulent. Keep this idea in mind, because this sets the precedent for a series of events that will escalate more and more. In April 2012, Kanye invites Kim to his Yeezy brand fashion show in Paris, and their friendship turns into something more. The relationship moves quickly, and in August, Kanye appears for the first time on the reality show where he cleans out Kim's closet. And in December, Kim surprises everyone by announcing that she's expecting her first child with Kanye, something she hadn't planned before marriage. The pregnancy is complicated as she suffers from preeclampsia and struggles to accept the changes in her body. In June 2013, their daughter Northwest is born. Kim is ready to take the next step in her relationship with Kanye. Kim and Kanye get engaged on October 21st, 2013, right on Kim's birthday. For the occasion, Kanye rents a football stadium in San Francisco, hires a live orchestra, and invites family and close friends. When they announce that the wedding will be in May 2014, it becomes clear that this time it will be even more extravagant. Kanye takes care of every detail, and from the very beginning, everything is luxurious. Just for the rehearsal dinner, they rent none other than the Palace of Versailles. One day before the wedding, about 200 people fly to Paris to join the couple. They tour the palace gardens and dine in the Hall of Mirrors while Lana Del Rey sings Young and Beautiful. But that was just the rehearsal. The next day, everyone boards private jets bound for Florence, Italy, where the wedding will be held at the stunning Forte di Belvedere. Kim wears a dress specially designed by Givenchy and a cathedral-length veil. Finally, as Andrea Bocelli sings in the background, Kim walks down the aisle and they both vow to love each other. After joining Kanye, Kim becomes part of one of the most publicized couples, and her style changes completely. She goes from flashy, typical 2000s clothing to a more sophisticated and minimalist look thanks to Kanye, which positions her for the first time as a relevant figure in fashion. And with this new direction, in the winter of 2014, Kim appears on one of the most famous magazine covers in history. Paper Magazine features her in one of its issues, and for the occasion, Kim poses in a black dress that shows off her buttocks. You can probably remember the moment when the photos came out because it seemed like it was the only thing that mattered on the internet. On one hand, this was positive for her in terms of media attention because the whole world was talking about Kim Kardashian again. But on the other hand, the revealing photo sparked a lot of criticism and suspicion. People started to speculate that Kim had undergone multiple surgeries to achieve her physical proportions. And inevitably, this idea spread to the rest of the Kardashians. This might seem trivial and superficial, but I think it's actually a bit deeper and has more impact on society than you might think. Let me explain. By this point in the story, we've already seen that everything the Kardashians do gets unprecedented media attention. Every photo they post and every campaign they participate in becomes news in one way or another. But most of this attention is related to two main things: gossip about their personal lives or their looks and beauty. At the end of the day, they're figures who make a living off their image in one way or another, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The complicated part is that so much attention and exposure has made the faces and bodies of people like Kim Kardashian, her family, and in general the models we see in magazines or on runways almost unintentionally become the standard for what people perceive as valuable or worthy of admiration. As I've mentioned before, self-esteem is never truly self because it's never entirely our own. It's always framed within our relationship with others. It's the result of comparing how I see myself with what society deems worthy of value, admiration, or attention. And therefore, when what you see in the mirror doesn't match what you see on the screen, on social media, or on the runways, it's almost inevitable that your self-esteem will be affected. And what makes things even worse is that it's an unfair comparison because the standard is literally unattainable, something many people are aware of and take advantage of to profit from. In a moment, you'll understand why I'm not exaggerating when I say the standard is unattainable. Kim and Kanye want to have another child, but the second pregnancy is complicated by preeclampsia. In December 2015, Saint West is born and Kim needs 5 surgeries after giving birth. And when she wants more children, doctors warn her that another pregnancy would be a risk to her life. But we need to take a break from Kim to talk about the other members of the family. Now it's time to talk about the younger sisters, Kendall and Kylie. When the family became famous, they were just little girls, but by 2014 they were already teenagers. They grew up in front of the cameras, something that shaped their worldview, to the point that for them it was normal to live with cameras recording them all the time. Although they admit that fame brings difficulties, they agree that the worst is the pressure to look perfect. And unlike Khloe, who dealt with those ideals as an adult, Kendall and Kylie face this pressure from the age of 11. Thanks to their family, the sisters have extraordinary opportunities, like interviewing the cast of The Hunger Games at the movie premiere or appearing in an episode of the hugely popular series America's Next Top Model. Kendall decides to enter modeling at the age of 13 with Wilhelmina Models. She quickly goes from brands like Forever 21 to walking the runway for Chanel and Dolce & Gabbana. She is so successful that by 2015, she is already one of the most important models. She becomes a Victoria's Secret angel and appears in Forbes as one of the highest paid models. Kylie doesn't focus on fashion like her sisters, but rather on social media. She posts photos, gains followers, and becomes an inspiration for many teenage girls because of her style. With so much exposure, she also receives criticism, especially for having lips that are too thin. Over time, her image changes. She looks more tanned and with fuller lips. The change in her lips is so dramatic that many suspect she had them injected, but she insists it's just makeup. The change generates so much interest that the Kylie Jenner Challenge is born, where people try to imitate her lips. Taking advantage of this attention, in 2015 she launches Kylie's Lip Kit, which sells out in minutes. Later, Kylie admits on the reality show that she did get lip fillers to make them look bigger. I think this case is a perfect example of the 2 points I mentioned earlier: unattainable beauty standards and the fact that self-esteem is always influenced by others. But here a third factor comes into play: the beauty industry, which, even if it sounds conspiratorial, seems to profit from the insecurities it often creates itself. We live in a society that constantly shows us images of what it considers valuable, and Kylie Jenner is a clear example of that. A figure who dominates cameras, headlines, and millions of likes. The problem is that the standards Kylie represents are impossible to achieve. And not because Kylie is a hologram, but because her image is built with injections, makeup, surgery, filters, and digital retouching. These are figures we inevitably end up comparing ourselves to, even though they don't actually exist in real life, making that comparison unfair and harmful. As we've already seen, if what we see in the mirror doesn't match what is considered valuable, our self-esteem suffers, especially when these ideals surround us every day. And that's where the beauty industry often takes advantage of that insecurity. First, it shows you an ideal of beauty and then sells you the solution to get closer to it. However, these products always disappoint because what they promise to achieve doesn't exist. Kylie's lipsticks are an example of this. They promise to bring you closer to the ideal she represents, but it's impossible to achieve that result because that ideal is edited. I don't think it's wrong in itself that Kylie got her lips injected. Everyone is free to do whatever they want with their body. The problem is having lied about it and then profiting from other people's insecurities by selling a product that will never make you look like the model being promoted. That's why phrases like "love yourself as you are" can feel empty or even cruel, because it's not something you can choose overnight. If every day you compare yourself to an unattainable ideal and then look in the mirror, it's natural to feel inadequate. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to look like that, because no one looks like that in real life, much less over time. Something else happens in 2015 that shakes up the family world. Bruce Jenner, Kendall and Kylie's father, divorces Kris Jenner and a month later comes out to the world as a trans woman named Caitlyn. During this time, Kylie starts dating the rapper Tyga, who goes by the name King. As a result, she changes her Instagram handle to King Kylie, marking the beginning of an era that will be remembered by that very name. Her makeup style with voluminous lips and bold eyes becomes iconic, and seeing her popularity, Kylie decides to take her line of lipsticks to the next level. In 2016, she renames the brand Kylie Cosmetics and multiplies the production of her kits. Now we return to Kim, who goes through a traumatic experience in October 2016. While attending Fashion Week in Paris, two men disguised as police officers break into her apartment. They tie her up, lock her in the bathroom, and steal $10 million worth of jewelry, leaving Kim deeply affected. The impact is so great that she postpones filming the reality show, and days later, Kanye is hospitalized for a psychiatric crisis, worsened by the anxiety after the robbery. There, he is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, something that will be important later on. Despite everything, Kim continues with her ventures, but this event marks a before and after. Since then, security has become her top priority. Now it's time to talk about one of the family's biggest controversies, the commercial Kendall Jenner did for Pepsi in 2017. To understand it, we have to remember that police brutality has affected the African American community for decades. Because of this, a movement called Black Lives Matter emerged, which seeks to raise awareness and fight against this. Many brands try to jump on the social justice bandwagon, but Pepsi's attempt was a disaster. In the ad, Kendall joins a protest and resolves the conflict by handing a Pepsi to a police officer, which was immediately criticized for trivializing a real struggle. Pepsi pulled the commercial the next day and issued an apology. Kendall remained silent for months and later on the reality show gave an apology that convinced no one, saying she felt bad if she had offended anyone. Despite the scandal, her career was not affected, and that same year she was named the highest paid model in the world. In February 2018, Kylie surprised her fans by announcing that she had given birth to her first daughter, Stormi. The father is rapper Travis Scott, whom she had been dating for a year. Although the pregnancy was unexpected because she was still so young, Kylie managed to balance her new life as a mother with her role as a businesswoman. That same year, Kylie Cosmetics experienced one of its best moments and her net worth reached $900 million. Forbes magazine put her on the cover with the title America's Women Billionaires, celebrating that she would soon become the youngest person to reach that status. But not everyone agrees with that narrative. Many criticize the idea of calling her a self-made billionaire, pointing out that Kylie comes from the most famous family in the world and grew up surrounded by opportunities unimaginable for most people. That, along with the idea that she has no real talent, are among the most common criticisms directed at the members of this family since they began their careers. However, many people see it differently. They believe the family has an incredible talent for capturing people's attention. Today, we live in an era where attention has become the new currency, and they seem to have known exactly how to channel every piece of news, every relationship, and every scandal to their advantage, often turning them into platforms to build solid businesses. It's true that they were born with many privileges, but it's also true that they didn't just sit back and enjoy what life handed them. And what is undeniable is that they transformed their lives into something that in one way or another became an industry that moves thousands of people. But what do you think? Do you think the Kardashians have no talent and shouldn't be famous? Or do you think they've known how to take advantage of the game and people's curiosity for their own benefit? Going back to Kim, 2018 is a complicated year. This is when their third daughter is born, whom they name Chicago, but through a surrogate pregnancy due to complications in her previous pregnancies. What makes this year complicated is Kanye's mental health. That year, the rapper makes several comments that worry those close to him, such as declaring on Twitter that he and Donald Trump are brothers and that they share dragon energy. Furthermore, this support for Trump causes some backlash since he is a figure associated with racist comments and actions. Aware of Kanye's progressing bipolar disorder, Kim tries to balance caring for her family with her personal projects. One of these is Skims, her new brand of fashion, underwear and shapewear. But this brand stands out for having an approach that includes all kinds of sizes, from double extra small to 5X. At the same time, she also has her fourth child, Psalm. In 2020, the pandemic temporarily halts the filming of the reality show, and when they resume, each member records herself at home to maintain social distancing. During this period, Kylie reconciles with Travis Scott and they spend the pandemic together. In September 2021, they announced that they are expecting their second child, and Kylie gives birth to a boy in February 2022. For Kim and Kanye, however, the pandemic worsens the tensions in their relationship. Kanye's increasingly controversial comments and his bipolar disorder complicate family life. Until finally, after attempts to save the relationship, Kim files for divorce in February 2021, putting an end to 6 years of marriage for one of the world's most influential couples. In 2021, in addition to the end of Kim and Kanye's relationship, another major chapter closes. After 14 years and 20 seasons, Keeping Up with the Kardashians comes to an end. However, this doesn't mean they stop appearing on screen. They announce a new reality show simply titled The Kardashians, now on Hulu. The format remains similar, but the change is mainly due to financial reasons, with better salaries and fairer deals among the sisters. The Kardashians premieres in 2022. From then until today, 2025, the family's life has continued to change. Kylie broke up with Travis Scott, started a relationship with Timothée Chalamet, and launched her clothing brand Kai. Meanwhile, Kim has found success with Skims and has ventured into acting in projects like American Horror Story. Today, the Kardashian-Jenner family is more powerful than ever, and their influence on popular culture is undeniable. No matter how many people say they hate them, it seems the Kardashians always find a way to stay relevant. I want to close this video with an invitation to look at these kinds of figures in a slightly more constructive way. Because let's be honest, we're inevitably going to keep being exposed to these beauty ideals on social media, in shows, and with every scroll we make. We can't escape them, but we can change the way we look at them. I think the first step to having a more constructive relationship with these standards is to accept that what we see on screen is not something attainable. Every person is different and every person is unique. And it won't be attainable, not because you lack discipline or willpower. Many times, what we see isn't real or healthy either. If we chase that image perpetually, we'll be destined to live in perpetual dissatisfaction. And even though it's true that our self-esteem is always built in relation to others, that doesn't mean we can't do anything about it. Questioning these ideals can be the beginning of finding some peace within ourselves. We can ask ourselves, do I really need to achieve that image to be valuable? Maybe we can't change the world that bombards us with these standards, but maybe we can change the way we position ourselves in relation to them. Because our worth doesn't depend on looking like someone else, and because learning to question what is presented to us as ideal is an act of self-love that, although definitely not easy at all, is worth trying.